"She's not your mom," I choked out, as Cheryl's jeweled hand yanked at Malik's sleeve while her phone stayed raised for the perfect reunion shot. 10 years gone, no calls, no diapers. Now she was live streaming my son like a trophy for her redemption brand. And before I could even pull him back, a courier shoved a manila envelope between us, petition for custody, bold as a slap. My knees almost gave out, but tucked under my bed sat a decade of receipts, dates, and truth she couldn't spin. She thought this was her comeback. She had no idea I was about to make it her reckoning. My name is Renee Caldwell, and I'm 45 years old. Between hospital shifts and church volunteering, I've built a quiet life, raising my cousin's son in our 2-bedroom apartment on Pine Street. The evening routine with my adopted son Malik, now 10, anchors our days, homework, prayers, and the peace I fought to create. My cousin Cheryl, Malik's birth mother, was always chaos in stilettos, bouncing checks and borrowing money she'd never repay. The night she left 6-month-old Malik on my doormat with just a hastily scribbled note, something in me knew to start keeping records. Every receipt, every milestone, every unanswered call, all filed away in my nursing neat folders under the bed next to the box of his baby things. The lemon-scented air catches as I study his crayon portrait labeled Mom and Me on the fridge. But let me start from the beginning. I was setting out plates for dinner, listening to the October rain tap against our kitchen window, when Malik bounced in from washing his hands. The sound of boiling spaghetti filled our cozy space as he settled into his usual chair. "Mom, can you sign my field trip form?" He pulled a crumpled paper from his backpack. "We're going to the Science Museum next week." "Of course, baby." I stirred the pasta, breathing in the comfort of garlic and herbs. "Just put it on the counter and I'll—" The doorbell rang. Something about that chime felt wrong. We never got visitors this late, and my nurse's instinct, the one that spots trouble before it shows on the monitors, started humming. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, told Malik to stay put, and headed for the door. You ever get that feeling where your whole world's about to shift? Like when you're half asleep and miss a step? That's what hit me when I looked through the peephole. Cheryl stood in our hallway, backlit by the glow of what looked like a white Mercedes parked outside. Her gold bangles caught the fluorescent lights as she shifted from foot to foot, and waves of citrus perfume seeped under the door. 10 years had treated her well. Designer everything. Fresh. Highlights. That same movie star smile that used to charm landlords into extending her rent. I opened the door, and my heart dropped as Malik appeared behind me. He pressed against my leg, fingers digging into my jeans like he was 6 months old again. "Oh, my baby." Cheryl crouched down, voice dripping honey. "Mommy's here." Malik's grip tightened. When I glanced down, his eyes were pleading with me, confusion written all over his face. This stranger calling herself Mommy might as well have been speaking another language. "Look how big you've gotten." She reached for him, but he shrank further behind me. I noticed her phone half raised, angled for what would have been the perfect reunion shot. Mother and long-lost son embracing in the doorway. "No photos," I said firmly. "We can talk in the hall, 5 minutes." Cheryl's smile flickered, but held. She straightened up, adjusting her Gucci bag. "I've changed, Renee. Got clean, built a business. I'm stable now, speaking engagements, sponsorships. My whole brand is about redemption and second chances." "Your brand?" The word tasted bitter. Social media influence is real business nowadays. She pulled up an Instagram page full of inspirational quotes and filtered photos. "I help people transform their lives. And now..." Her voice softened to velvet. "I'm ready to be the mother he deserves." Behind me, I felt Malik trembling. "I'm sorry, baby," I said over my shoulder, keeping my eyes on Cheryl. "Why don't you go check on the spaghetti?" He darted back to the kitchen like he'd been waiting for permission to escape. "You can't just walk in here after 10 years, I kept my voice low, "and expect—" "Can't I?" Her tone turned sharp, practiced warmth vanishing. "He's my son, blood tells cousin. Or did you forget that part? While playing house? I think it's time for you to go. We'll see. She stepped into the hallway's fluorescent glare, bangles jingling like warning bells. The elevator dinged open, and she gave me one last smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes, the kind that says checkmate before the game even starts. I closed the door, turned both locks, pressed my forehead against the cool metal, and took one deep breath. Then came the knock. Heavy, official, the kind that changes everything. When I opened the door, a young man in a courier's uniform held out a manila envelope. Legal service for Renee Caldwell? My signature was shaky on his clipboard. I waited until his footsteps faded down the hall before sliding my finger under the flap. From the living room, I could hear the familiar jingle of Malik's favorite cartoon show. Under the yellow cone of my reading lamp, I spread out the papers. The words petition for custody jumped out in bold letters, followed by page after page of legal language that made my stomach clench. I'd seen enough medical charts to know when something was serious. This was serious. You know those moments when you need someone steady, someone who's walked these roads before? For me, that was Mr. Jordan. He'd been our church's attorney before retiring, and I'd seen him guide plenty of families through troubled waters. I picked up my phone, praying he still kept the same number. Renee? His voice was warm, familiar. Everything all right? I need your help, Mr. Jordan. It's about Malik. He arrived 40 minutes later, looking exactly as I remembered. Crisp suit, patient eyes, and that careful way of moving that reminded me of my favorite attending physicians. He even brought peppermint tea, like he used to during church council meetings. Start from the beginning, he said, legal pad ready. Tell me everything. I pulled out my records. You don't spend 20 years in nursing without learning to document everything. I've got all his daycare pickup logs, every doctor's visit, immunization records, report cards, school registration forms, church attendance. My voice cracked a little. I've been his mother in every way that matters. Mr. Jordan nodded, making notes. Courts? Look at what's in the child's best interest. Stability, attachment, community ties, these all matter. But Renee, he set down his pen, we need to be prepared. Cheryl has resources now, and money doesn't just buy fancy lawyers, it buys strategy. What do you mean? This isn't about motherhood for her. It's about pride, about what she's selling to her followers. Brand architecture, they call it. He tapped his legal pad. She's building a redemption story, and Malik is supposed to be the final chapter. I felt my nurse's instincts kick in, assess, organize, prepare. I grabbed my file boxes and started sorting. Housing, school, medical, photos, church. Each moment of our life together, cataloged and labeled. Around 9, Malik appeared in his pajamas, clutching his favorite book. Mom, can we? Of course, baby. I looked at Mr. Jordan, who was already gathering his things. We'll talk more tomorrow, he said, squeezing my shoulder as he left. Stay strong. In Malik's room, surrounded by his solar system mobile and basketball posters, he finally asked the question I'd been dreading. Is she really going to take me away? Look at me, I said, keeping my voice steady the way I did with scared patience. You are my son. Nothing changes that. Not papers, not courts, not anything. Promise? Promise. I smoothed his curls against the pillow, breathing in the coconut scent of his shampoo. Get some sleep now. A rush of memories hit me. Malik's first steps in our living room, his kindergarten graduation, countless nights of homework at this very table. Each moment earned through showing up, through staying, through loving him even when it was hard. Mr. Jordan's words echoed in my head. Money buys strategy, not truth. Well, I had truth in these boxes. Years of it. And if Cheryl wanted a fight, she'd learn what real motherhood looked like. Not in filtered photos, but in the everyday work of raising a child. I stared at those neatly labeled binders, each one a chapter of our life together. The midnight quiet hummed around me as I traced the hearing date with my finger. 10 years of love versus 10 minutes of legal papers. Somehow it didn't seem like a fair fight. The next morning hit me like harsh hospital lighting, all glare, no warmth. The courthouse lobby stretched out in beige and bureaucracy with that peculiar hush that makes even whispers feel loud. Mr. Jordan stood beside me, going over our talking points one last time while I watched Malik play with some blocks in the corner. Sister Loretta, bless her, had agreed to watch him during the hearing. "Remember," Mr. Jordan murmured, "stick to the facts. Dates, routines, specifics. No emotional appeals unless the judge asks directly." I nodded, smoothing my cardigan. 20 years of giving testimony in medical cases had taught me the same lesson, just the facts, clean and clear. The elevator chimed, and I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Cheryl glided in like she was walking a red carpet instead of a courthouse corridor. Designer blazer, camera-ready makeup, and heels that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Behind her towered a lawyer who looked like he charged by the breath, all Italian wool and practiced confidence. "All rise," the bailiff called, and we filed into courtroom 3. You know that moment when you're checking a patient's vitals and something's just off? That's how it felt watching Cheryl settle into her chair, arranging herself like she was posing for a photo shoot. Too perfect, too rehearsed. The judge, Hamilton according to the nameplate, had the kind of face that had seen every trick in the book. She started with basic facts: Malik's age, current living situation, school enrollment. When my turn came, I spoke about the real stuff. 10 years of midnight fevers and multiplication tables, parent-teacher conferences, and Sunday school plays, the time Malik broke his arm climbing the backyard fence, and how I'd sung hymns until the pain medication kicked in. "Ms. Caldwell," Cheryl's lawyer stood, all smooth motion and practiced smile, "your devotion is admirable, but I'd like to introduce Exhibit A." The clerk passed copies around. My heart stopped. There it was, a temporary guardianship agreement with my signature at the bottom. Dated 10 years ago. Only I'd never signed anything like that. Ever. "Your Honor," the lawyer continued, "my client never abandoned her son. This document clearly shows—" "Objection!" Mr. Jordan's voice cut through my panic. "We request to examine the original document." Judge Hamilton nodded. "Approach." I watched Mr. Jordan study the paper through his reading glasses, his finger tracing something I couldn't see. "Your Honor, if you'll notice the kerning on the date field, and the ink showing different aging patterns." Across the room, Cheryl's lip twitched. Just once, but in that micro-expression, I saw everything. The judge frowned, examining the document herself. "Counselor, what's your chain of custody on this?" Cheryl's lawyer launched into some complicated explanation about storage facilities and relocated offices. I barely heard it. My fingers found the prayer coin in my pocket, the one Malik had given me last Mother's Day. The metal was warm, grounding. "There are credibility concerns here that need to be addressed," Judge Hamilton said, the words falling like ice cubes into still water. Cheryl's lawyer didn't even try to hide his smirk. The judge consulted her calendar. "Given the serious nature of these allegations and the child's current stability, I'm setting an accelerated schedule. We'll reconvene in 30 days. I want full discovery, complete documentation, and—" She fixed both parties with a stern look. "Any additional evidence needs to be authenticated and submitted, no later than 48 hours before the hearing." The gavel crack made me jump. 30 days. They were giving Cheryl 30 days to build her case on a forged foundation, while my decade of real documents somehow felt smaller, lighter. My hands gripped the table edge as everyone stood. I watched Cheryl adjust her perfectly styled hair in a compact mirror, probably already composing her next social media post about justice and patience. Mr. Jordan's hand found my shoulder. "Steady now," he whispered. "We've got work to do." I'd never sweated in an air-conditioned bank before, but there I was, hands clammy while the teller processed my transfer. My entire savings account, meant for Malik's college fund, drained into Mr. Jordan's retainer. The numbers on the receipt made my stomach clench. "Will there be anything else today, Ms. Caldwell?" the teller asked. "No, thank you. I tucked you, the paper into my purse, already doing mental math. Rent was due in 2 weeks. I could stretch the groceries, maybe pick up an extra night shift. When you've spent years making nurses' wages work miracles, you learn to squeeze pennies until they shine. Back home, my phone buzzed like an angry hornet's nest. The DMs had started trickling in that morning. Now they were a flood. Baby snatcher. Give that poor mother back her child. Who do you think you are? Keeping a son from his real mom? You ever notice how cruel people get when they think they're being righteous? I clicked through to Cheryl's Instagram page, and there it was. Perfectly filtered photos of her looking sad but determined, captioned with things like, "Fighting for what's mine," and "A mother's love never dies." The comments section was full of hearts and prayer hands. Remember those social media influencer deals she'd mentioned? Turns out, Redemption Mom was quite the profitable brand. Each post had thousands of likes, hundreds of shares. All those strangers, thinking they knew our story from a few carefully crafted captions. The school secretary called, just before dismissal. "Ms. Caldwell, could you come in a few minutes early? Ms. Reeves would like a word." I found Malik's teacher in her classroom, arranging math worksheets with careful hands. Through the window, I could see kids gathering their backpacks, whispering. Some of their parents had probably seen Cheryl's posts. "Mrs. Caldwell," Ms. Reeves said, "I wanted you to know, we're aware of the situation." She lowered her voice. "Some children have been asking questions, making comments." My throat tightened. How's Malik handling it? He's strong, but I've noticed him getting quieter during recess. She touched my arm. I've set aside a quiet corner in the library if he needs some space. And if you need any documentation about his academic progress or social development. I thanked her, trying to keep my voice steady. On the fridge at home, right next to Malik's chore chart with its gold star stickers, I stuck a yellow Post-it note. 30 days. The sight of it made my chest hurt. The kitchen table became my command center, affidavits spread out like battle plans, bills stacked in neat piles of worry. Mr. Jordan needed everything documented. School records, medical history, witness statements from neighbors. But the words kept blurring together. What if I was being selfish? Maybe Cheryl really had changed. She had money now, connections, could give Malik opportunities I never could. The thought cracked something in my chest. I picked up my phone, fingers hovering over Mr. Jordan's number. He answered on the second ring. "Sister Caldwell? Everything all right?" My voice caught. What if I'm doing the wrong thing, fighting so hard when she's his biological mother? Now listen here. His voice went gentle but firm, like a hand on a shoulder. Blood doesn't raise a child. Love does. Dedication does. 10 years of middle-of-the-night fevers and homework help. That's what makes a mother. The ceiling fan spun lazy circles above me, shadows dancing across the walls. I pulled up my messages, started typing. "Cheryl, maybe we can work something out. End all this." My finger hovered over send. The house felt too quiet, too heavy with possibility. Delete, delete, delete. My hands shook as I set the phone down. Down the hall, Malik's nightlight cast a soft glow under his door. I killed the kitchen lamp and walked to his room, pressing a kiss to his forehead. He smelled like school crayons and that watermelon shampoo he insisted on buying. The clock on his nightstand blinked 11:47. Then 11:48. I lay in my own bed, counting seconds until morning, while somewhere out there, Cheryl was probably planning her next move. Saturday mornings were our thing, you know? No matter what chaos the week brought, Malik and I had our ritual. Mickey Mouse pancakes with way too much syrup, cartoons on low volume, and the kind of quiet that feels like a warm blanket. This particular morning, though, my mind kept drifting to the mess in my closet. Spring cleaning was months away, but sometimes you just need to take control of something, anything, when the rest of your life feels like it's spinning out loose. "Baby, I'm gonna organize some clothes," I called out to Malik. "You good out there?" He was sprawled on the living room carpet with his comic books, humming that tune from his school musical. Amazing how kids can find their pocket of peace even when the world's throwing stones. Ever try to clean out a closet with 10 years of memories stuffed inside? It's like archaeology, but instead of dinosaur bones, you're finding old Christmas sweaters and shoes you swore you'd wear someday. I was reaching for a stack of winter coats when this beat-up moving box came tumbling down, nearly taking my head off. Cheryl, Misk, was scrawled across the top in my handwriting. Lord, I'd forgotten all about this box. Must have packed it up right after she left, back when I still thought she might come back for her things. You hold on to stuff sometimes, not because you want to, but because letting go feels too final. The packing tape was yellow with age, crackling like autumn leaves as I sliced through it. Inside was pure Cheryl, costume jewelry that probably turned her neck green, half-empty perfume, bottles, some club flyers from places I'd never set foot in. And there, wrapped in one of her old scarves, designer knockoff naturally, was a smartphone. Now, I'm no tech wizard, but I know enough from keeping up with Malik's gadgets. Found an old charger that fit, plugged it in, and said a little prayer. You'd be surprised how often those work. The screen lit up with that familiar fruit logo. My heart did a little skip. First piece of luck I'd had in weeks. When it asked for a passcode, I almost laughed. 4 digits, same as always. Cheryl's birthday. That woman never could remember a password that wasn't about herself. The home screen popped up like a time capsule. Old apps, random screenshots, and, there it was, photos. My nursing training kicked in. Document everything, assume nothing. I opened it up, and thumbnail after thumbnail filled the screen. Beaches, nightclubs, cocktails with those little umbrellas. Not exactly rehab scenery, if you catch my meaning. Then I spotted it, that little cloud icon in the corner, still showing sync on. My hands started trembling so bad I had to set the phone down for a minute. Because here's the thing about the cloud. It keeps track. Dates, times, places, all those little digital breadcrumbs people don't think about when they're busy living their best lives. I grabbed one of Malik's school notebooks, tore out a clean page, wrote down every file path, every setting, every detail that might matter. Took pictures of the phone's screens with my own device. Mr. Jordan taught me about chain of custody and all that. The whole time, my heart was doing double time against my ribs. Found a Ziploc bag in the kitchen, the kind I use for Malik's lunch sandwiches. Sealed that phone up like evidence, because that's exactly what it was. The kind of evidence that could cut through 10,000 filtered Instagram posts. Standing there in my bedroom, holding this plastic bag with its precious cargo, I could still hear Malik humming in the living room. That same little tune, peaceful as could be. I closed the door real quiet-like and leaned against it, watching the spinning wheel on that old phone screen promise more secrets to come. You ever feel hope creep back in? Not the big, bright kind that hits you like sunrise. The small kind that starts like a whisper and builds slow, steady, sure. That's what was happening in my chest right then, watching that little wheel spin and spin. I'll tell you something about evidence. It's only as good as the story it tells. And scrolling through that phone, I was watching Cheryl's carefully constructed story unravel one timestamp at a time. Picture after picture told the same tale. Cabo San Lucas sunsets, dance clubs with neon lights burning through tequila haze, group shots with faces I didn't recognize, everyone's eyes glazed and happy in that way that comes from choosing escape over responsibility. Each image had its little digital fingerprint, time, date, location, all lined up neat as hospital charts. Then I found the voice memos. Lord, have mercy. Girl, you don't even know how good it feels. Cheryl's voice, loose and laughing. Music thumping in the background. No more diapers, no more crying, no more. She dissolved into giggles. Freedom tastes better than motherhood. I'm telling you that right now. My hands were steady when I picked up my phone to call Mr. Jordan. That's what nursing teaches you. When something hits hard, you get calmer, more focused. He picked up on the second ring. We need to document this properly, he said after I explained. His voice had that careful tone lawyers get when they smell blood in the water. Every step matters. You understand what we're dealing with? Evidence chain, I replied, already reaching for a fresh notebook. Like the medication logs at work. Exactly. Photograph everything, screen by screen. We'll need to prove when and how you found the phone, who had access, every step you take with it. For the next 2 hours, I turned that bedroom into an evidence processing center. Took pictures of every screen with my own phone. Exported everything I could to an encrypted drive Mr. Jordan had given me earlier in the case. Wrote down every single step in my notebook with times and dates, just like I do with patient care. The smart play would have been to rush this to court. But sometimes winning isn't about being first. It's about being last, with the knockout punch they never see. Coming. Let Cheryl spin her stories about redemption. Let her build that house of cards higher and higher. When it fell, it would fall all the way down. I practiced my testimony in the bathroom mirror while brushing my teeth. Yes, Your Honor, I can authenticate this evidence. Yes, Your Honor, I maintained proper custody. No, Your Honor, I had no reason to access this device until... But judges can be funny about digital evidence. I'd seen enough court shows to know that. So I printed out every bit of documentation I could find about cloud storage, metadata, geotags, made it a proper paper trail. Had my statement about finding the phone notarized at the bank where they've known me 15 years. The phone went into that evidence bag, sealed tight. Then into my fireproof lockbox, the one where I keep Malik's birth certificate and my grandmother's Bible. Some things you protect, extra careful, you know. Standing in the hallway afterward, I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for days. The air smelled like the spaghetti sauce still simmering on the stove, Malik's favorite, with extra basil. Mom? His voice drifted from the living room. Can we do movie night? I finished all my homework. It hit me then. Through all this gathering of evidence, all this legal maneuvering, he was still just my boy wanting to watch superheroes save the world. Evidence might win the case, but love was why we were fighting it. Sure thing, baby, I called back. You pick the movie, I'll make the popcorn. You know what they say about pride coming before a fall? In my line of work, I've learned it's not the pride that gets you, it's the paperwork. Every nurse knows if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. And Cheryl? She was documenting everything. I created a new folder on my laptop, labeled it Public Posts, and settled in at the kitchen table with my chamomile tea. The house was quiet, except for the soft whir of the laptop fan and Malik's gentle snoring from down the hall. Past midnight, but sleep wasn't coming anyway, not with so much evidence to gather. Social media's funny that way. People post their whole lives thinking those little squares tell their story, never realizing they're really writing their own prosecution. I started with Cheryl's Instagram, hitting that screen record button and watching her life unfold in reverse. My finger hovered over the pause button as I watched her take that sip. The liquid definitely had bubbles, but they weren't from any cider I'd ever seen. The timestamp read July 15th, exactly when she'd sworn to the court she was marking 6 months sober. I overlaid the system time display and even pulled up that day's news ticker running beneath. Perfect alignment. Got you, I whispered, saving multiple copies. You don't spend 20 years in nursing without learning to back up your backup. I worked methodically through her feed, printing out every caption where she talked about finding herself and walking the path of redemption. Each one got highlighted and paperclipped to the corresponding Mexico Beach photos from that old phone. Side by side, they told quite a story. Here she was, reflecting in peaceful solitude. Timestamp matched to a club video where she was definitely not alone or peaceful. The thing about lies is they need constant maintenance. Truth just sits there being true, but lies, they need feeding. Cheryl was spending so much energy maintaining her perfect redemption narrative, she didn't notice she was leaving receipts everywhere. My phone buzzed, a text from Mr. Jordan. I'd sent him the file checksums earlier, making sure our evidence was properly authenticated. His response was just a thumbs-up emoji, but it felt like battle armor. In court, details win wars. Just for due diligence, I refreshed Cheryl's profile one more time. The champagne celebration video was gone, deleted, but not fast enough. I checked my folder. There it was, sound and all, her voice slightly slurred as she toasted her amazing recovery journey. I labeled that one Anchor Clip and saved it to both my encrypted drives. The cover sheet I wrote for court was simple, just dates, times, and a brief explanation of how the evidence was collected. Clean, clinical, like a patient's chart. No emotion needed. The facts would do all the heavy lifting. Rain started pattering against the windows as I closed the laptop. Looked at the kitchen clock. 2:17 a.m. The countdown sticky note on the eye. Fridge reminded me we were down to day 18. But for the first time since this started, that number didn't feel like a threat. In the quiet dark of my kitchen, watching the rain make shadows on the wall, I thought about something my grandmother used to say. Truth is patient. It'll wait as long as it needs to, then show up right on time. I glanced at that sticky note again. 18 days. Just enough time for Cheryl to keep building her house of cards, never knowing I had proof of every joker in her deck. I stood in my bedroom that morning, sliding the iron across my best navy dress, the one with the subtle pinstripes that always made me feel a bit stronger. Steam rose in lazy curls, carrying that clean cotton smell that reminded me of Sunday preparations with my mama. Some habits stick with you, especially on days when you need every scrap of dignity you can muster. The doorbell chimed at exactly 8:15. Mr. Jordan was nothing if not punctual, arriving with his slim leather binder and that steady presence that had gotten our church through more than one crisis. He set his briefcase down, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, and gave me the kind of nod that said he was ready for battle. "Morning, Renee," he said, pulling out his legal pad. "How's our young man doing?" Before I could answer, Malik's voice came from the kitchen. "Miss Renee?" He was pushing his cereal around the bowl, something he did when his mind was heavy. "Will I have to move?" My heart caught. You want to protect children from hard truths, but lies hurt worse in the end. I sat down next to him, placed my hand over his smaller one. "Baby, I'm fighting for you. That's all I can promise, that I won't stop fighting." He nodded, seeming older than his 10 years. "I know you will." While Mr. Jordan reviewed his notes, I practiced my testimony in the hallway mirror, running through dates and events like I was giving report at shift change. 10 years of memories had to be distilled into clear, court-ready facts. My fingers found the prayer coin in my pocket, smooth from years of worried touches. The courthouse loomed gray and stern against the morning sky. Inside, the air conditioning hit like judgment, raising goosebumps under my sleeves. We found seats on the hard wooden bench outside courtroom C, and that's when I heard it, laughter from down the hall. Cheryl's laugh, bright and careless, mixed with her lawyer's deeper chuckle. Something in me sagged. You know that moment when doubt doesn't just whisper, but shouts? When you can suddenly picture exactly what losing looks like. I saw Malik's empty bedroom, his prayer bear abandoned on the pillow, no more "Good night, Miss Renee," floating down the hall. The click of almost surrender echoed in my head. My hands were shaking as I pulled out the old phone. Just needed to see it again. Those damning little GPS pins scattered across Mexican resort towns, each one a nail in Cheryl's custody coffin. I zoomed in on the timestamps, let the truth of them steady my pulse. 10 years of care versus 10 months of hashtags. Facts versus fiction. "Mr. Jordan?" My voice was low but firm. "I still think we should hold the phone evidence for the final hearing. Let her build her story higher first." He studied me over those reading glasses, then gave a single nod. "Sometimes the best defense is letting someone else dig their own hole." He paused, adding, "You're stronger than you know, Renee." The bailiff's voice cut through the corridor. "Caldwell and Caldwell, pre-trial conference." I stood, smoothed my dress, squared my shoulders, like Mama taught me. The heavy wooden doors sighed open on well-oiled hinges. Beyond them lay either victory or heartbreak, but standing there in my navy dress with Mr. Jordan beside me, I felt something settle in my spine. Let Cheryl laugh. Let her think she had this wrapped up with her designer suits and practiced smiles. I had something better than money or influence. I had truth, carefully preserved in timestamps and GPS coordinates. And truth, like justice, knows how to wait for its moment. The bailiff held the door. Mr. Jordan gestured for me to go first. I touched the prayer coin one last time and stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next. The courtroom felt smaller than it had 30 days ago. Maybe it was the extra bodies packed into the gallery. Seems like half the church had shown up, along with what looked like Cheryl's entire social media following. The wooden chairs creaked as we settled in, and that faint lemon polish scent reminded me of long nights cleaning the hospital waiting room. Funny how the mind wanders when your whole world's about to shift. This is the final hearing in the matter of Caldwell versus Caldwell regarding custody of minor child Malik Thompson, Judge Harrison began, her voice carrying that particular tone that comes from years of handling family heartbreak. We're at day 30 of our expedited schedule. Counsel for petitioner, you may proceed with opening. Cheryl's lawyer stood, all $1,000 suit and practiced charm. Your Honor, over the past 30 days, we've demonstrated Ms. Cheryl Caldwell's remarkable journey of rehabilitation and personal growth. Through therapy, career development, and spiritual guidance, she has transformed herself into a model of restored motherhood. I watched Cheryl nod, along, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. The performance was perfect, too perfect, just like those rehab posts that didn't match her margarita photos. Mr. Jordan squeezed my arm gently, our signal. As opposing counsel finished his opening, we stood together. Your Honor, Mr. Jordan began, before addressing the broader custody factors, we'd like to introduce several exhibits regarding Ms. Cheryl Caldwell's whereabouts and activities during her claimed period of rehabilitation. He gestured to the court clerk. Permission to approach with foundational documents? The judge nodded, and I felt my heart pound as Mr. Jordan handed up our chain of custody logs. 10 years of nursing had taught me the value of good documentation, and these pages showed every step from finding that old phone to preserving its contents. Your Honor, we can establish the device's origin through household records and contemporaneous photos, Mr. Jordan continued. We've included manufacturer documentation regarding cloud storage protocols and timestamp preservation. Cheryl shifted in her seat. Her lawyer leaned forward, frowning at the stack of papers now circulating to his table. The court's AV tech dimmed the lights as we brought up the first photos on the display screen. These images, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, show the petitioner at various locations in Mexico between March and August of last year, the same period she claimed to be in residential treatment in Arizona. One by one, we walked through the photos. Cheryl on a yacht in Cabo, Cheryl at a club in Cancun. Her friends tagged and time-stamped in each frame, GPS coordinates hanging like truth in the corner of every shot. And now, Mr. Jordan said, we'll play Exhibit J14, a voice memo from the same device. Cheryl's laughter filled the courtroom. Another round! Who needs diapers and drama when you've got sunrise margaritas? Her lawyer was on his feet. Objection, Your Honor. Authentication, context. If counsel will permit, Mr. Jordan interrupted smoothly. We're about to address both concerns. The final clip began playing. Cheryl's recent Instagram live stream, champagne flowing as she celebrated her 1-year sobriety. Milestone. The timestamp blinked in the corner, a news ticker about gas prices scrolling beneath, proving the exact date. Objection overruled, Judge Harrison said. Subject to cross-examination. She turned to the clerk. Let's take 20 minutes while I review these exhibits with IT. I want verification on these metadata timestamps. The gavel cracked, and I gripped the edge of our table as people filtered out. The wall clock read 10:57 a.m. 20 minutes suddenly felt like forever. Sister Loretta squeezed my shoulder as she passed. Keep praying, she whispered. I watched the judge lean over the exhibits with her clerk and the court's tech specialist, their heads bent together over glowing screens. Across the aisle, Cheryl's lawyer was whispering urgently in her ear. She wasn't smiling anymore. The prayer coin was warm in my pocket as I counted each minute. 10:58. 10:59. Truth was, out now, recorded in pixels and timestamps. All we could do was wait. The marble hallway magnified every whisper during recess. I stood near the water fountain, sipping from a paper cup that couldn't quite wash away my dry throat. A few feet away, a woman in a blazer emblazoned with some lifestyle brand's logo bent close to her colleague. Complete liability at this point, she murmured. The morality clause alone. You know that feeling. When your whole body's humming like a live wire, but you have to keep your face straight? That was me, watching their hushed conversation while pretending to study the civil rights timeline mounted on the wall. 10 years of night shifts had taught me how to look calm when everything inside was racing. Cheryl sat on a bench across the hall, her French manicure clicking against her phone screen as she scrolled faster and faster. Her jaw was clenched so tight I could almost hear teeth grinding. The perfect image she'd built was cracking, pixel by pixel. Mr. Jordan had slipped me a note before stepping away to take a call. Truth doesn't rush. Those 3 words steadied me like a hand on my shoulder. I'd spent a decade learning patience, changing diapers, checking homework, kissing scraped knees. What was 20 more minutes? All parties in Caldwell, return to courtroom 3. The bailiff called, his voice bouncing off the walls. The air felt different when we filed back in. Cooler, clearer somehow. Judge Harrison sat straight-backed at the bench, a neat stack of papers arranged before her. After reviewing the submitted exhibits with our IT department, she began. This court finds the following. All GPS tags are intact and consistent with location metadata. EXIF data shows unaltered timestamps across multiple devices. System times align with both cloud backups and public social media posts. She looked up. In short, the evidence appears both authentic and properly preserved. Cheryl's lawyer stood, tugging at his collar. Your Honor, given these developments, we request a brief continuance to approach, Judge Harrison cut in. I watched them huddle at the bench, voices low. After a moment, Cheryl joined them. The whispers grew more intense, hands gesturing in tight circles. Finally, they stepped back. Your Honor, Cheryl's lawyer said, shoulders stiff. At this time, I must regrettably withdraw as counsel of record. My heart jumped, but I kept my face still as a pond. Nurses learn that too, how to hold steady when everything shifts. Ms. Caldwell, the judge addressed Cheryl directly. Do you understand that this withdrawal may proceed without delaying today's ruling? You may represent yourself or request appointed counsel, but this court will not grant a continuance at this late stage. Cheryl's "Yes, Your Honor" came out thin and reedy, nothing like her polished social media voice. Very well. We'll proceed to closing statements. Judge Harrison nodded to Mr. Jordan. Defense first. He rose slowly, deliberately. We'd practiced this part for hours at his office, refining every word until it rang true. Your Honor, he began, this case isn't about social media followers or corporate sponsorships. It's about a 10-year-old boy who's known only one constant parent, Ms. Renee Caldwell. For a decade, she's been there for every fever, every school play, every nightmare. She's maintained his therapy appointments, coordinated with his teachers, and created the stable home he needs to thrive. The familiar words washed over me as Mr. Jordan continued, touching on Malik's improved grades, his church youth group participation, his close relationship with our extended family. I found myself mouthing along silently, tasting the truth of each point. The evidence shows not just Ms. Cheryl Caldwell's deception, he concluded, but more importantly, it demonstrates the clear danger of disrupting Malik's life to satisfy a social media narrative. We ask the court to maintain his current placement and grant permanent guardianship to Ms. Renee Caldwell. The room fell silent as Mr. Jordan sat. Judge Harrison turned to Cheryl. Ms. Caldwell, your closing statement? Cheryl stood, then sat, then stood again. Her mouth opened and closed twice before she managed, "I pass, Your Honor." "Very well." Judge Harrison lifted a folder, and my hands clasped together so tight my knuckles went white. Everything, 10 years of love and worry and hope, balanced on whatever words came next. The prayer coin pressed against my thigh through my pocket as I held my breath, waiting. The gavel cracked like thunder, and suddenly I could breathe again. After careful review of all evidence and testimony, Judge Harrison's voice rang clear. "This court finds in favor of the defendant, Renee Caldwell. Permanent guardianship is hereby granted, with all associated rights and responsibilities." My hands trembled as I pressed them flat against the table. 10 years of loving and worrying and praying, all of it validated in those few words. But Judge Harrison wasn't finished. Furthermore, given the demonstrated pattern of deception and apparent fraud upon this court, Ms. Cheryl Caldwell's parental rights are hereby terminated. She turned a stern gaze toward my cousin. "Your request for supervised visitation is denied pending a separate hearing on sanctions for perjured testimony and falsified documents." Cheryl's perfectly contoured face went ash gray. She grabbed for her phone like it was a life preserver, but even that betrayed her. I could see her hands shaking as notification after notification lit up her screen. My own phone started buzzing in my pocket, messages from Sister Loretta, who'd been watching the corporate fallout. She'd forwarded a chain of emails. "Regret to inform you that Fit Mommy supplements must terminate our partnership agreement effective immediately. Mama Life Coaching values authenticity above all else. Given recent revelations, cannot maintain brand association due to serious misrepresentation concerns." The whispers started rippling through the gallery as people checked their phones. Cheryl's carefully curated Redemption Mom empire was crumbling in real time. I watched her frantically, tapping her screen, probably trying to delete comments or lock down her accounts before the storm hit full force. You know what's funny? I thought I'd feel satisfaction watching her world collapse, but all I felt was tired. 10 years of carrying that weight, wondering when she'd come back, dreading what she might do, and now it was just done. The courtroom doors burst open, and I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Malik's sneakers, squeaking on the polished floor. "Mom!" I dropped to one knee just as he crashed into me, his backpack thumping against my shoulders as his arms locked around my neck. His cheeks were wet against mine, and I could feel his whole body trembling. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, holding him tight. "We're okay. We're going home." Mr. Jordan touched my shoulder gently. "Speaking of home," he said with a warm smile, "why don't you two head there? I'll handle the final paperwork, but don't you need me to?" He shook his head. "Go home to your boy. You've done enough." I had to sign a few last documents at the clerk's window, my signature steadier now than it had been in weeks. The manila folder of exhibits felt lighter somehow as I tucked it into my bag. Funny how evidence weighs so much until you actually use it. Outside, the afternoon sun hit me like a blessing. I paused on the courthouse steps, remembering all the times I'd climbed them with my stomach in knots. Now I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of Malik standing there, grinning ear to ear. This one would go in the special album, right next to his first steps and his kindergarten graduation. I texted Sister Loretta, "Coming home." Then I looked at my boy, my son, legally and forever now, and squeezed his hand. "How about we take the long way?" I suggested. "Stop at Ms. Rose's bakery on the corner." His eyes lit up. "Can I get a chocolate croissant?" "Baby, today you can get 2. We started down those steps together, and for the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel the shadow of Cheryl's return hanging over us. Each step took us further from courtrooms and custody battles, and closer to just being what we'd always been, mother and son, no matter what any birth certificate said. 3 Sundays after the hearing, I stood in my kitchen watching steam curl up from my favorite tea mug, the one Malik painted for me at summer camp last year, all wobbly hearts and crooked letters. The morning light streamed through the window, catching dust motes in its beam, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't wake up with that knot of worry in my stomach. I'd waited to frame the court order. Maybe part of me needed those 3 weeks to really believe it was over. But that morning felt right, so I'd pulled out the dark wood frame I'd been saving and carefully positioned that official document with its raised seal and formal language. In the matter of guardianship, those words used to terrify me. Now, they read like a blessing. The local paper sat open on my kitchen table. There, in the business section, was a small article about Cheryl's continuing professional setbacks. Seemed those big companies that had been so eager to profit from her fake redemption story were even quicker to distance themselves once the truth came out. Her public apology tour had fizzled before it started. Turns out, not many people want to book a speaker whose whole platform was built on lies. I didn't take any joy in her downfall. Honestly, I mostly felt tired when I thought about her. Tired and a little sad for that baby girl I used to know, before she learned to value likes and followers over flesh and blood. Moving to Malik's room, I straightened the row of binders on his shelf, each one labeled in my neat nurse's handwriting. Housing, school, medical, photos, church. 10 years of our life together, documented and preserved. Behind them, in the lockbox, I'd tucked away Cheryl's old phone in its evidence bag, just in case any questions ever came up again. You don't spend 20 years in nursing without learning the value of keeping good records. "Mom, look!" Malik called from his desk. He was working on his latest masterpiece, a rocket ship headed for the stars, complete with flames shooting out the bottom. Above his desk hung 2 frames now, the court order on the left, and right beside it, that crayon drawing he'd made years ago. Just 2 stick figures holding hands, labeled "Us" in wobbly kindergarten letters. The sight of those 2 frames side by side caught in my throat. One, a child's pure expression of love. The other, a legal declaration that made that love official in the eyes of the law. Different kinds of truth, both equally powerful. "That's beautiful, baby," I said, touching the corner of his rocket ship drawing. "You want to hang this one up too when you're done?" He nodded, adding careful strokes of orange to the flames. "Can we put it next to the special paper?" The special paper. That's what he called the court order. I smiled, watching sunlight catch the gold seal. "Of course we can." I ran my hand along the frame's edge, feeling the smooth wood beneath my fingers. Everything that mattered was right here in this room. My son, his art, our life together made official. The air felt different somehow, lighter, cleaner, like after a storm passes and leaves everything washed new. You know what they say about how you don't really appreciate something until you almost lose it? Standing there in that quiet Sunday morning, watching Malik color and listening to the spring breeze ruffle his curtains, I felt the truth of that deep in my bones. We'd fought for this peace, this ordinary grace of mother and son sharing a morning. I touched the frame one more time, letting my fingers rest on the glass. Let it stand there, I thought. These 2 frames tell our story, a child's drawing and a judge's ruling, love made visible and lawful at last. Looking at Malik bent over his artwork, tongue stuck out in concentration, just like when he was little, I spoke the words I'd been holding in my heart through all those years of uncertainty. Family isn't who leaves, it's who stays and fights. He looked up at me with those bright eyes, so full of trust and love, and I knew every single battle had been worth it.